This episode, could the end be near for the Fantastic Beasts? Marvel dives headfirst into tabletop, and is Coachella music's biggest annual event? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Humanican Media, and all the great things that we do at popculturecosmos.com, plus the fact that we are the #1 tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook. Plus, we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every day right there at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. And if you could support all of that, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our own guy that hangs out at Coachella when he gets the chance. He is our good friend indeed. He is the man behind so many great things at Humanican Media, including the old podcast you still got to check out with plenty of stuff that's available at Topicocalypse, plus his current show, the Super BS Gamescast, and his amazing book, Congratulations You Suck, which you got to get today at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It is my good friend. It is Josh Culture Cosmos. Are you doing anything on the mosh pit at Coachella?
No, there's no actual rock bands here playing, and most of it's just like dance music and rappers. So not a lot of moshing going on at Coachella this year, I don't imagine.
Well, we're going to talk about Coachella on the back end of the show, and we're going to discuss whether it is now the major annual music event as it's come back. It's come back strong. We'll talk about all the numbers, expected crowd attendance, and some of the artists, because you cannot name in the entire 60-minute show that we do all the artists, because there are just so many artists that are there. 3 different stages, all on YouTube, over 2 weekends. So the amazing Coachella will be talked about on the back end of the show. Plus also as well, Marvel is going to dip their toes into the water once again. They've done it before in little bits and pieces, but they're going to do it again with their own tabletop RPG with some slight added tweaks and twists. Later this week, they're going to go ahead and preview that. We're going to talk about if they can make a dent into the world of D&D with their own multiverse. That's coming up later in the show. We're also going to have a special guest, Jeff Ravilla, from the Stuff I Never Knew podcast. He's going to be talking about the possibilities of what may be to come for season 2 in Severance. Plus, what did he enjoy most about what I feel is the best season of television so far in 2022. That's also coming up in a bit. Plus, we will be talking some TV. Halo episode 4. Did it get any better for us? Tokyo Vice episodes 4 and 5. Plus, Open Range on Amazon Prime. Amazon has been pushing this hard. Not exactly Tomorrow War hard, but close to it. We'll talk about the possibilities of Open Range as a hit series for Josh Brolin. That's coming up in a bit as well. But first, my friend, it is the not so fantastic beasts, because the Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore has debuted all over this weekend at theaters. Well, it's actually done a little bit more in other markets. It's been out a little bit longer, and it is not faring well. It's not faring well in the UK. It's not faring well in China, Japan. It's not faring well here in the United States, as it's getting its softest opening for a Harry Potter related movie ever at right around 40 to 42 million. for the entire weekend. Now, some of that can be laid blame to Easter because people are doing Easter like things, and we hope everybody had a great Easter weekend. But I also think it's a sign that the Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter whole universe could be in some trouble.
See, I have some maybe the movie's bad, I don't know, but I'm having a hard time with this one because I can't tell if the movie I haven't seen the movie yet, but I can't tell if the movie's bad or if the publicity around J.K. Rowling is what's sinking the ship. Because every time I've read a review on this, they kept saying, "Well, they did a lot of things for they're this is good, good, good," but J.K. Rowling trans comments. That's like all I'm seeing from this. So I'm wondering if that people are giving this movie, they're going into it wanting to give it a bad rating because of these things that they can't just like
Well, and
separate.
that's not good as a critic. You got to put that aside, whether you disagree or whatnot
Right.
with those comments. And I certainly disagree with what she said on those comments. But I'm saying in regards to the actual review itself. You have to put that aside if you're
Mm.
supposed to be an impartial critic in order to give it a review. Now, right now on Metacritic, it is given a 47 overall rating, which means that there's a lot of bad ratings out there. And I don't think all of them are going to be based on those comments. I think a lot of them are out there. There are a lot of there are critics out there that are going to give it an unbiased score and just say whether or not it's a bad movie or a good movie.
Right, but I don't think that that's right now, I don't think that's outweighing the ones that aren't, like, I read IGN stuff a lot, right? And they're I guess what you would call, like, the woke nation, but they gave it a 4, and they lead into the review with the JK Rowling comments, and, like, I think that had she not said these things, I feel like we would be getting a whole different set of scores. Granted, I have not seen the movie yet, so it might just be bad, but, I'm having
Because
a
the
hard
second
time.
one was bad. You and
The
I
second
hated both.
one yeah, the second one was bad, but see, I'm just like I'm having a hard time because it's hard for me to say like, "Oh, this movie's good or bad," because I haven't seen it yet. I need to
Yeah.
see it with my own eyes before I'm like, "Oh, yeah, the movie's, like, trash," or it just got beat up because of something the creative person behind it said, It's challenging because I really wanna like this movie, like, I heard that from what I understand, they handled the Dumbledore Grindelwald relationship in a way that feels organic and all that. And so like I'm really curious to see how those pieces played together. They showed a lot of cool things in the trailers. So I don't know, like I still love the world of Harry Potter, but I have a hard time. This movie's giving me a hard time because I need to know for myself if it's good or bad because it's just had so many people going, well, J.K. Rowling said this, she said that, she said this, she said that, and I wonder had she not made these comments, would these outlets who champion all the social causes, which is nothing wrong with that by any means, but would their scores have been different? We've talked about outlets being getting money to lean one way or another, and I'm kind of having a hard time with this one.
I understand. I understand. It might be a little bit better as far as overall than what the critics saying, especially with the Metacritic score right now. Maybe you can't totally trust what that is at this time because, like you said, if there's an influence because of what the statements that J.K. Rowling had made, but needless to say that the declining returns is also a stamp from the viewers out there as far as that's concerned because this will do poor than any other Harry Potter related flick in the entire chain. And to me, that signals that there needs to be some type of change, or you're going to have to go ahead and back up the Brinks truck a lot sooner than you thought for Emma Watson, Daniel Radcliffe, because to me, as I stated on the Friday show, the only way you're really going to get this series back underway, so to speak, into a blockbuster type level is you're going to have to go ahead and bring the original three back in a Cursed Child, as Cursed Child rendition, a Cursed Child movie edition of the series. So you're going to have to go ahead and do something like that before you're going to go ahead and get any type of interest generally from the audience
Yeah.
out there at large.
Well, let's talk about the narrative for a minute, right? I think sorry, I need to stop saying "right" after everything I say, it bothers me.
Right?
Um, I don't know, I was listening to someone talk the other day, and they just kept saying "right" after everything, I'm like, "Oh, man, that's annoying." And the more I started thinking about it, the more I started doing it. Anyways, that's a rant for another time. If you look at the Harry Potter franchise and you see going into those movies, they kept getting bigger and bigger, but it also there's something in them that felt like home. You would go, it's the same thing when you like read the books. You go to Hogwarts, you get to know these characters, and you just keep returning to this setting time after time, and it felt good. It felt good to be there. It felt like you were part of this school, it was part of these friends, part of this family of wizards, I guess. But with Secrets of Dumb or the Fantastic Beasts franchise, it's so all over the place and disconnected that it's hard to latch on to any of the characters, especially since they keep introducing new characters with each film. With Harry Potter, by the time they got to the third film, you were heavily invested in, Harry Potter, Neville, Hermione, Ron. Like you had all the even Draco Malfoy. You were heavily invested in all these characters, but with
Were you heavily invested in Ron or Rupert?
well, maybe not heavily invested, but you were attached. You were attached to the character regardless.
Of course. I'm just teasing when I say that.
No, yeah, no, I know. But with these Fantastic Beast movies, you're not really invested in these characters because they keep pushing new characters into the fold and highlighting their stories as opposed to what's been developed already. And so I understand why people would be having a hard time with this franchise.
Like I said, I don't think you will see true success from this series unless you do something like on HBO Max, maybe an extended series that directly ties more into the world of Harry Potter, or The Cursed Child that becomes a live action movie or experience, trilogy, whatever. And you get Harry Potter coming out after soccer practice, coming out of that minivan, coming out to save the world, going ahead and calling up Emma on the cell phone. Hey, we need you. We need you to come back. That type of deal. That's going to get people back interested because, as I stated before, when were you watching the Harry Potter movies out there? You were watching it when you were much younger. You were watching it then with your family and that whole type of environment. But 2 decades later, actually, because it's been 2 decades since it started, it is now so much different. People have grown up, people grow older, they have their own families, but they don't exactly they've not exactly embraced the Harry Potter culture since then. Maybe that's partly attributed to the J.K. Rowling's comments. I'm not sure. I don't know. But again, it comes down to the fact that Harry Potter has not retained, as Rob McCallum would say, our good friend, director of Nintendo Quest. Please go ahead and check out the extended views today at YouTube. But our good friend Rob McCallum would say it's not retained its cultural footprint as it once did.
Yeah, agreed. And that also goes back to the J.K. Rowling comments. It has such a heavy influence on how much people like the world of Harry Potter these days, and that's unfortunate
That's
because
also unfortunate for the guys who made or guys and gals who made the video game that's upcoming later this
exactly.
year.
Yeah, I mean, you read the comments about those, or some people are excited about it, but every comment on those, any article is posted. J.K. Rowling said this, she said this, she hates this, and this, and it's just unfortunate that that's going to have such a heavy toll on a world where there are plenty of great stories to still be told and plenty of, whether you're whatever side of the fence you fall on the J.K. Rowling argument, that it's still that world has the ability to reach people of all different types of orientations and skin colors and all that, because at the heart of Harry Potter, it's about good versus evil and helping people in need. And I think that that's a theme that really resonates with today's society if you're able to, I guess, ignore what has already been said about by the people that made it.
Well, we'll see what happens there. But again, it is Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore. It is not faring so well at the box office. Again, gonna be reported right around the low 40s here in the States as far as $40 million at the box office. And worldwide, it is not faring that well either. So the outlook for the 5 movie series, I still think they're going to get the 5 movie series done. Whether or not they have to go ahead and send it over to HBO Max or whatever they're going to call it out now that the Discovery merger has been made, I don't know. I'm not sure yet, but the future for Fantastic Beasts is not looking good. But we want to hear your thoughts on Fantastic Beasts, the Secrets of Dumbledore. Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, it's a good man indeed with Jeff Revilla from the Stuff I Never Knew podcast. He's talking about Severance season 1 and also what's coming up or what may come up in season 2. He's talking all the possibilities with me coming up after the break. And then after that, Josh and I are going to be talking some TV, some Marvel multiverse tabletop action, and Coachella. Just how big is Coachella? We'll talk about that coming up after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Culture Cosmos, Josh Peterson. Want to make sure you know that we're the #1 tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook. And in doing so, we just also want to mention that we cover the latest news and trends at pop culture. And you can find all those awesome things at Pop Culture Cosmos on
Hey,
Facebook.
before we move in, can we just do a quick segment that I like to call Pop Culture Face Palm? All right. This
Okay.
is this is did you read about the Parade magazine and Ali Wong's divorce?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. They
Yep.
posted a picture of because Randall Park is one of my favorite parts of the MCU, and they
Mm-hmm.
posted a picture of him instead of the
Her
husband
now, yeah, the man who she's going to divorce.
divorce.
Yes.
Yeah, Justin Hakuda, I think his name was.
Hakuda, yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Anyways, that's I think that's worthy of a face palm.
Yes, absolutely. That was several publications, including MSN, I believe. I was reading that this morning, but that doesn't surprise me a bit as far as the way that these publications they throw stuff out there, and yeah, they just can't get it right half the time. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, just to remind when we were in school,
yeah,
the most important thing was integrity, and now
yeah,
there's
and checking your work, checking
checking
your
your
work.
work, fact
Yeah,
checking.
yeah.
Not a lot of that seems to be going on anymore.
No, 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 not indeed. But I do want to thank Jeff Revilla from. I do want to thank Jeff Revilla from the Stuff I Never Knew podcast. He was talking about seasons 1 and hopefully what's coming up in season 2 of Severance, one of my favorite shows that's out there. But before we head out, my friend, I want to go ahead and talk some TV and Marvel and Coachella. We talk about the Halo experience so far as episode 4, my friend. We're up to it now. Are you braving through it? Are you struggling through it? Is it still a challenge? Because for me, the in episode 4, and we are going to go into spoilers, so I just do want to mention as well that with episode 4, you're seeing an evolution of change as far as from one of the Spartans, the head Spartan, that is not John 117. That is the one of the other Spartans. She's going through kind of like a transformation, a self reflective thing that's making her change and keep maybe straying her a little bit away from her duties, which is kind of a weird turn for there. But then also going as far as John's trek to his original home planet, talking about some his past visions. He's seeing again some past visions, and he's not even touching the artifact now. So he's seeing these past visions, including the famed, which they added in there. Did you notice this? The coin toss thing, the coin toss test that Dr. Halsey originally did with a young John way back when, but also the fact that they have located a second Covenant artifact, which he had drawn up many years ago. So, your thoughts on where we're going with Halo Episode 4? You still have the insurrectionists fighting other with a resistance, fighting other insurrectionists who are sympathetic to the UNSC. You have the Covenant that has really this episode. The Covenant took a siesta. They took a rest because they really didn't touch on them very much. I don't know. This series is just all over the place, and it's not telling good stories in either one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of threads being unwound right now that are just not interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I still am going back to the thing with like Saren, I think his name is, and Quan. Like, I'm just not interested in their stories. I mean, that's not to say they're bad actors, but I'm not interested in that arc. the whole like resistance thing. Like, what is in the games? There are no resistances that are sympathetic to the UNSC. Like, it just it
It's an
doesn't make sense.
there's insurrectionists.
Insurrectionist, yeah. So are you you're resisting what? You're it doesn't
And now
make
there's a
any
resistance within the resistance.
right,
Or the
exactly. So
colonists. You got to say colonists
the
or yeah, I don't know. It just makes I don't know.
it's just it's too much. It's too much. I did, I am enjoying seeing the Master Chief like kind of come to as far as his memories go and waking up just a little bit because I know Halsey wants to use his reemergence of memories to get that other artifact, but Master Chief is still eventually he's going to realize that Halsey's not the I guess
The wonderful scientist that
wonder
she
exactly.
proclaims to be. Yeah.
Exactly, and I'm enjoying seeing the dynamic between Master Chief and Cortana grow a little bit, which is that was always one of the best parts of the game, here and there banter back and forth. So that's pretty cool. The other Spartan cutting her thing. See, at first I thought that she was going to end up like fighting Master Chief over something,
Hmm.
but when she was watching, I thought she was going to confront him about what he's doing.
When she
Honestly,
was leering at him in the bathroom
right, right, and honestly had no idea that she's gonna end up cutting out her own thing, which is kinda cool. So,
and coloring her hair and
following
stuff like
her
that.
yeah, so now we're seeing an emergence of the human side of these super soldiers, and, the UNSC seems to be slowly losing control of their best weapons, which is cool, and if the story is anywhere goes anywhere where the games did, the UNSC's, just kinda gonna lose control of everything here soon enough. But as for the episode as a whole, it was not. It had some interesting parts to it, but it still is just kind of a meh.
Well, it's agreed here because it's something it's something that I think that we need to go ahead and just evaluate as a little bit better on as far as when you check it out, when you watch this and you're trying to go ahead and get through it, and that's the problem. You shouldn't have the mindset, okay, I have to get through this as you're watching it. You should just have the mindset that you're entertained. And unfortunately, right now with Halo, there are segments of it, large segments, which are really not entertaining, and that's to me very disappointing. But again, I am so positive on the fact that it is still doing well numbers wise for Paramount Plus. So please don't mistake my pessimism on the series as far as the quality to any pessimism about the series being on the air, because I am so thankful that the series is on the air simply again, and I will stress that, because it will allow more video game properties to reach an entertainment platform. So that I am thankful for, and I am thankful for Halo being on the air, and that's why I'm sticking through it all the way through.
Right. Yeah. And sorry, I will also be watching it to completion. I'm holding out hope that it's going to get better and there's going to be some things that will kind of turn the ship around, so to speak. But I'm not holding my breath right now.
What are your thoughts on episode 4 and the series for Halo? Has it gone in a better direction for you, or are you still just as confused as we are and disappointed as we are in the series overall? Please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. I'm also checking out Tokyo Vice episode 4 and 5. Want to mention that Ansel Elgort is not a detriment to the series. He's actually okay going through the series. I know there's been a lot of criticism of him in this series, which I think is a little bit unfair because I think he's been solid as the young reporter that's trying to uncover some mysteries going on with the Tokyo underworld and the Yakuza. I like the fact that when it stays on that story, as far as behind the scenes of the newspaper or behind the scenes of the underworld, you see the inner fighting between them, the possible chaos that could commence, and that actually did commence in episode 5. I really like that part of it as far as the battles that we're in, it's between the battles between the different Yakuza clans, and also the mysteries of as far as how they could be gaining a serious amount of money through suicide. They're profiting off of suicide, the Yakuza, with these shell loan corporations. It's a very intriguing story, and I really am enjoying that aspect. But like you said with Halo, there's another side story that takes up about 10 to 15 minutes each and every episode that is really not worth it. It's a side episode, or it's a side deal, side story, where you have a American that comes over to Japan and is basically, a companion girl who sits in tables with the Japanese businessmen, pours their drinks, has conversations with them, then goes to other tables and whatnot, and she's making a nice fortune out of it, a small fortune out of it. So now she wants to buy her own club, and now you're seeing that it's loosely tied into the yakuza because one of her boyfriends is a yakuza, and then also she knows Ansel Elgort's character. That to me is a waste of time, and it takes away from the investigation of these shell corporations and how it ties into the yakuza and the inner battles between the yakuza clans, and also behind what the police investigation of it and the newspaper investigation. Those are the intriguing parts of this show.
D Do you
And
think that they're gonna end up using her for, like, a information, or there's gonna be, like, a future romance between her and Ansel Elgort's character?
there might, because they've been conversating, but she's actually having a little thing with one of the yakuza right now. So I don't know if that who also knows Ansel Elgort's character very well, as far as on a friendship basis. They're kind of like friends. They're kind of like they know each other. They've worked with they've communicated with each other as far as some information back and forth. So they do work with each other a little bit, but that dynamic is just not working for me. It's just like it's taking away, like you said, it takes away from whatever positives that you have, because there's some really good positives on Tokyo Vice. It's just something, it's like a distraction. And that to me is disappointing. So I'd like to see that kind of like phased out, and the focus on the investigation commence and continue, or the battles in the underworld between the Yakuza clans, because that's the most interesting parts of this program.
Yeah, definitely something I still would like to check out when I get some free time to do that. From what you've described, though, it does sound really cool. It kind of reminds me of like a '90s television show, '90s kind of crime show.
Well, that's what it's based off. I mean, it's based off the years 1999 to 2001. That's when the years are set for this television series.
So that leads me to a question I've been wanting to ask you. Do you think, I mean, looking at shows like this, it sounds like it's created a pretty interesting world. We have a lot of sci-fi shows that are taking us to the future, but shows in modern times don't seem to fare very well or last very long. So do you think we're going to see like a resurgence of shows that take place in the '90s or in the '80s? Because that seems to be like those decades, or those eras seem to be things that people really have
Romanticize.
romanticize and they have nostalgia for. So it
Yeah.
just makes me wonder, do you think we're going to see a new wave of shows and sitcoms and dramas and all kinds of things that take place in years gone by, as opposed, because I mean, look at the world today. It's like it's not that great. Like there's not a lot to highlight in the world that could be used to like laugh at, because it's kind of
Or
dark
reminisce.
or
Yeah.
reminisce. It's
That
like
isn't dark, like you said.
it's cold and it's lonely and it makes me want to put a blanket on and hide in a corner. But you go back to like the '90s and I'm like, oh yeah, it's like I grew up there. That's awesome.
You often reminisce on the '90s. The '90s were okay to me. The '80s, again, I reminisce on that a little bit more. So yeah, you and I both, like you said, that we see a lot of nostalgia heading towards the '80s and '90s. We don't see it much as far as the early 2000s. I think that there are some things there in place that maybe prevent us from enjoying that decade, that first decade of this century. Maybe you will get fonder memories and some ways to reminisce about that decade a little bit later on down the line, but the '80s and '90s seem to be a very nostalgic time for us as far as basic human history, maybe. So, for in many ways, as far as people reminiscing about those times. So, yeah, I think right now you're going to continue to see shows that are based in the '80s and '90s, simply because of the fact that we have a lot of fond memories of those two decades.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something you look at. Disney Plus has the Wonder Years, the new season. Even you can go back and watch the old seasons too. They're bringing back, they brought back Boy Meets World. There's a lot of I'm sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot that can be mined from these older eras. Even Stranger Things taking place in the 80s. Last season they brought the shopping mall culture. There's a lot that can be taken away from those eras and turned into something great for modern viewing. And I just you don't see a lot of modern shows being as successful as shows that take place in days gone by.
But Tokyo Vice has been overall a good watch. Again, some distractions aside, it's been an overall good watch, and I do recommend it. So if you get a chance and you're on HBO Max or whatever they're going to call it, as far as after now that the merger's taking place between HBO Max and Discovery, that they're going to go ahead and merge together and have all their shows together, whatever they're going to call it. But right now it's called HBO Max. So if you get a chance, please check out Tokyo Vice. The first 5 episodes are now available on HBO Max. So if you're interested, please let us know your thoughts on Tokyo Vice, Pop Culture Cosmos at yahoo.com. Also, as well, wanted to mention Open Range with Josh Brolin. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I know my wife has started catching episodes. It's the latest series from Amazon Prime featuring Josh Brolin in a show that has a little bit of Yellowstone influence, to say the least, because it's about the battling ranches and some battling factions there, like we talked about with the Yakuza. Same things going on there, but also as well with the struggling farmer, the struggling family. They come across a supernatural event. They come across a supernatural location, which has taken the series into quite a different turn than your average Yellowstone type copycat type deals. So they've thrown that in the mix a little bit. Your thoughts on this with Open Range? I know you haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I know you've seen the advertising. It's something Amazon is clearly behind, just like they were Reacher. Could it find the same success? Because Reacher was a big hit for them. I think Open Range could be a nice successor as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely created a sense of mystery for me. I keep seeing I see little trailers for it, and I see the photos, I see the big banners they have when I open up Prime Video on the Xbox, and I'm fascinated. For me, it's the issue is just finding time to watch new things. The premise is definitely something that intrigues me. We don't have a lot of Western sci-fi type things. Josh Brolin, brilliant actor. I just got to say, like, I love everything that guy is in. I haven't watched a movie from him that I walked out saying like, oh, this is bad. He takes things in a direction that I don't know. There's just something about his acting that like feels magical to me, and it feels gritty to me as well. So that being said, it's definitely something I would not mind watching at some point. Is it gonna move up to the top of your list anytime soon, or what are you feeling?
We'll see what happens after Tokyo Vice and Halo. I know that there's going to be a little bit of a void there, so we'll see what happens before I hit up Kenobi. So we'll see what happens
Yeah.
there.
All right.
But your thoughts out there on Open Range on Amazon Prime? Is it getting your Western sci-fi fix in order? Please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, before we head on out, before we talk Coachella, just wanted to let everybody know that this week Marvel is previewing a tabletop multiverse per se as their multiverse role playing game set. They're going to go ahead and preview to the audience here coming up this week, I believe on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. So your thoughts on this? I know I won't have more thoughts with Melinda on the Friday show because I know she's very intrigued by this aspect, being our tabletop queen that she is, the expert on it of all things tabletop. But your thoughts on Marvel's, once again, they've done it a little bit in the past as far as dipping their toes into the tabletop water, but this seems to be something that they want to go ahead and delve even more into and maybe take a little bit of a bite out of the Dungeons and Dragons behemoth that it is.
So I this is not my area of expertise. I like Dungeons and Dragons, but with the exception of Dungeons and Dragons and I forget what the other one is, but I I think Marvel's already big enough. Like it's bad enough that they have like broken into the podcast market. Now they're doing the role playing games, and there's just some things that I feel like they don't need to have their hands in. But then again, they're like one of the biggest pop culture companies out there. I don't know. I'd want to read about it. I want to see people play. I want to see it in action before I really have some thoughts on it. But when I'm doing Dungeons and Dragons, I do not. It's a fantasy world that's interesting to me. I don't see myself wanting to be like Iron Man or something.
Ahead and create your own Marvel superhero within this universe. Maybe that will go ahead and appease some people because yes, you can while you can go ahead and I'm sure play as Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, what have you. Maybe they'll allow you to go ahead and create your own character in this universe that will go ahead and be able to explore. But yeah, the possibilities for out there of the possibilities are out there in Marvel's multiverse tabletop RPG that they're going to introduce. And again, I will elaborate more on it on the Friday show with Melinda. So please stay tuned for that. But if you have thoughts on the upcoming preview for Marvel's multiverse, please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. But before we head on out, Coachella, 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 Coachella. It's so funny because if you're watching the streams, because the streams are taking place, if you're not able to attend Coachella over the course of this past weekend and also this next weekend coming up, it's so funny if you watch the streams. Anytime someone of the artists says Coachella, people just start going, yeah, 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 just by naming, just by saying the word Coachella. It just is so funny because people start going up in arms, but it is Coachella, which I think is now. I think you got to consider it now. I don't know if you could say the world, but maybe the world. But you could definitely say it's the U.S.'s largest annual music event with over 750,000 people attending overall both weekends, which takes place over Easter weekend and then the weekend after. There's still one weekend yet to come, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And these concerts are just amazing. Three different stages, dozens and dozens and dozens of artists are there at Coachella both weekends. And some of the big names, Harry Styles, this past Friday, performed, which brought her on stage, kind of surprised everybody. Plus, he was performing new songs. Then they have Billie Eilish on the Saturday shows, Megan Thee Stallion, 21 Savage. Danny Elfman is going to perform. Maybe Oingo Boingo reunion, perhaps? Maybe. Then you've got on Sunday, you've got the Swedish House Mafia, plus The Weeknd, Doja Cat. Oh my gosh, you had Arcade Punks singing a lot, taking the stage on Friday, which got a lot of news coverage. I mean, there's a whole bunch of acts there. We're talking over 50 acts. I'm just seeing right here on the Coachella marquee for all 3 days. I'm seeing at least 50, maybe, looks like a lot more. So, your thoughts on Coachella? Again, 750,000 people are expected to attend this event overall. I'm thinking right now here we have here in Vegas the EDC, the Electronic Daisy Carnival that comes up next month. It'll get a good 300, 400,000 people. We also have Life is Beautiful here later on in the year. That gets about maybe 100, 200,000 people as well. Your thoughts on this? I think right now it is the largest annual event for music right now that's going on because this is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, you see a lot of people are excited about going to this regardless of who's playing. You watch
Coachella!
Coachella, yeah, people make jokes about this and like shows and stuff when they're trying to create characters that are kind of vapid, I guess. But it is definitely a big music festival. It's one of the oldest music festivals in the United States, and it definitely has an appeal for people to go to this thing year after year, despite who's on the bill. It's funny. I just pulled up a Coachella lineup from 1999, and you look at how different the styles of music have become. So you have like the headliners are Beck, the Chemical Brothers, Morrissey. You have Rage Against the Machine, Tool, and then you go to today this new lineup. You have like Harry Styles, Lil Baby, Billie Eilish, Swedish House Mafia on the weekend. It just, you can see there's definitely a big change in genre preferences when it comes to a festival like this. And
Well, they still have DJs. They still have, electronic music. They still
right,
have a lot of
well,
different things there
that's
as well.
yeah, and that's what a majority of the music is, though. It's electronic music, it's rap, it's a lot of things that aren't what it once was. But anyway, all this to say, like, I'm curious, like, what type of artists will be performing at this thing next year and the year after and the year after that, because Coachella seems to be showing no sign of losing momentum as the years go on.
No, it's only growing by leaps and bounds, and it is amazing to see the number of artists. I mean, if you go to Coachella.com and you just bring up the poster, it's right there for you. Again, I'm counting well over 50 artists that are there. In fact, we could be seeing close to 100 artists that are there that for the entire weekend. It's just amazing. In fact, yeah, I'd probably say it's closer to 100. I think I'm underwhelming it and under counting it right there for you. So close to 100 acts are there this weekend and this past weekend and next weekend. And it's just truly an amazing event that I think everybody needs to take notice as the biggest right now in America on an annual basis. So it is Coachella. It is something that I think a lot of people need to take in perspective, all the great artists, but you can still catch it this coming weekend on YouTube. Just type in Coachella.com and it'll actually get you right to as far as the links for the YouTube links for Coachella, or just put in Coachella on YouTube and it'll come right up as far as that's concerned. But he has 3 different stages, 3 different feeds for YouTube, so you can check out what you like. But please let us know if you're at Coachella, if you've attended Coachella, or if you want to attend Coachella, what you're looking forward to. Please let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. Cannot thank you enough, as always, for stopping by as you do as my fellow host in this world of pop culture. But any last thoughts before we head on out?
Yeah, I've been really interested in some of the comments being made by Discovery as they are purchasing Warner Brothers. They've been talking a lot about the DCU and how they feel characters like Superman have been underutilized, and they're planning on revitalizing that whole thing. I'm interested because I agree with them. I feel like the DC movie slate has gone off in so many different directions that nobody really has a grand vision anymore. They're just trying to capture fads and phases and seeing what sticks. You know, obviously, like Joker was good, but then you look at the Birds of Prey Harley Quinn focused movie, and that one was bad. So there's a lot of like, I don't know. There's a lot that they've tried that has not been successful. So I'm curious to see like what this company's buyout and what their acquisition of the DC properties are going to do for the films moving forward.
We'll see what happens. I know it's going to do a lot to your bill if you got HBO Max, that's for sure, once the merger finally happens on screen, so to speak, after all the stuff gets merged together, because the paperwork's done. They're now one big happy family behind the scenes. They just got to go ahead and put it out there on a medium and then go ahead and let you know how much it's going to cost. So we'll see what happens there. But I would like an expansion of the DCEU. I would like some order to the DCEU. We always talk about, like I did on the Friday show when we discussed this with Melinda and I, about how the whiteboard's a little messy right now at DCEU, and hopefully this merger can clean it up a bit so it can get into one straight direction
Yeah,
going
and
forward.
maybe this will be open up an invitation to Zack Snyder to come and finish his second Justice League movie.
Maybe indeed, but we'll see what happens with the DCU now that the Warner Discovery merger is done. If you have any thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com on this. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what takes place in the future for the DCEU. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great